Hunter and his friends had been planning their summer camping trip for months, and the excitement was palpable as they all met up in the city to begin their journey. They had all known each other since high school, and despite going their separate ways after graduation, they had remained close. Hunter, the ringleader of the group, was the one who had suggested renting a cabin in the woods for the weekend. He was always up for an adventure and loved nothing more than being out in nature. He had a rugged, outdoorsy look about him with his shaggy brown hair, scruffy beard, and muscular build. His friends always looked up to him and trusted his judgment, which was why they all readily agreed to his plan. As they loaded their backpacks and camping gear into Hunter's truck, the group couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation for the weekend ahead. They joked and laughed as they made their way out of the city, the urban landscape giving way to the lush greenery of the forest. Hunter and his friends made their way further up the mountain and deeper into the forest. They decided to make a quick stop at a country store to pick up some supplies. The store was small and quaint, with shelves stacked high with jars of pickled vegetables, canned goods, and hunting gear. As they walked up to the cash register to pay, an old man with a long white beard and a weathered face greeted them. He wore a plaid shirt and suspenders, and his eyes were sharp as he looked at each of them in turn.
Y'all headed up to the cabin, are ya?
The old man asked. Hunter nodded.
Yeah, we're looking forward to a weekend in the woods.
The old man's eyes darkened as he leaned in closer to them.
You kids should be careful out there.
He warned.
There've been some strange things happening in those woods lately. People disappearing without a trace.
Hunter and his friends exchanged a look and chuckled nervously, assuming the old man was just trying to scare them.
Thanks for the warning, old-timer,
Hunter said with a grin.
We'll keep an eye out for any boogeymen.
The old man shook his head, a serious expression on his face.
It ain't no boogeyman, son. There's something out there. Something that ain't natural.
Hunter and his friends shrugged off the old man's words and headed back out to the truck, excited for the adventure ahead. But as they drove deeper into the forest, Hunter couldn't help but feel a creeping sense of unease. Was the old man's warning just an old wives' tale, or was there really something sinister lurking in the woods? They arrived at the cabin just as the sun reached high noon. They stepped out of the truck, and the fresh scent of pine and earth invigorated them. The cabin was rustic but charming, with a large stone fireplace, wooden beams, and cozy furnishings. Hunter and his friends eagerly explored the cabin, claiming their rooms and making plans for the next day's adventure. Little did they know that the forest held secrets that would turn their fun-filled weekend into a fight for survival. After an afternoon of hiking and exploring the woods, Hunter and his friends returned to the cabin, ravenous and ready to eat. They fired up the grill outside and cooked up a feast of burgers, hot dogs, and grilled vegetables. The smell of sizzling meat and charred onions filled the air, and Hunter's stomach rumbled with hunger. As they ate, the sun began to set, casting a golden light over the forest. Hunter and his friends talked and laughed, reliving the adventures of the day and making plans for tomorrow's hike. But as the sun dipped below the trees, the temperature began to drop, and they decided to head inside. The cabin was cozy and warm, with a crackling fire in the fireplace and soft blankets draped over the couches. The smell of wood smoke mixed with the aroma of the dinner they had just eaten, creating a comforting atmosphere. Hunter settled into one of the armchairs, feeling content and relaxed. As the night wore on, Hunter and his friends played board games and drank beer, enjoying the peaceful solitude of the woods. But as they began to yawn and feel the fatigue of the day, Hunter noticed a strange noise outside. It sounded like rustling leaves, but there was something about it that seemed off.
Did you guys hear that?
Hunter asked, turning to his friends. They all paused, listening. Sure enough, there was a faint rustling sound coming from outside. Hunter got up and walked to the window, peering out into the darkness. But all he could see was the thick blackness of the forest, the trees rustling in the wind. He shook his head, chiding himself for being paranoid, and turned back to his friends.
Must have just been a branch or something,
he said with a shrug.
Let's get some sleep. We've got a big day tomorrow.
The group settled into the living room, gathering around a crackling fire in the stone fireplace to tell some ghost stories before bed. But only one story in, Hunter's girlfriend Samantha suddenly straightened and declared she thought she left her phone outside. She leapt out of his arms and had darted to the back door before anyone could say a word. Samantha darted out the back door. Almost immediately after the screen swung shut behind her, Hunter and the others heard a low growl followed by a thunderous roar. Hunter's heart skipped a beat as he recognized the sound. He grabbed his gun and bolted after Samantha, shouting for the others to follow. Outside, Samantha had found her phone on the table and was reaching for it when the bear appeared, towering over her on its hind legs. Its eyes glinted in the dim light, and its breath was hot and fetid. Samantha froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The others emerged from the cabin just in time to see the bear swat at Samantha with a massive paw, sending her tumbling to the ground. Tyler took aim with his rifle and fired, the sound echoing through the woods. The bear staggered, but did not fall. It turned its attention to the group, its massive form seeming to fill the entire clearing. Hunter and the others backed away, their hearts racing. They knew they were no match for the beast, but they couldn't leave Samantha behind. The bear let out a guttural roar and charged, its massive frame hurtling towards them. The group scattered, dodging trees and leaping over rocks as they tried to evade the beast. Hunter fired his gun, but the bear seemed unfazed. Just then, another bullet exploded from somewhere out in the blackness of the forest. The bear reared back and then fell, crashing to the ground in rising plumes of dust around it. Samantha jumped back into Hunter's arms, sobbing. Hunter had dropped his rifle to hold his girlfriend when a hunter emerged from the woods, shotgun in hand. The man had a stern look on his face as he approached the group, who were gathered around the still body of the massive bear. The hunter's eyes flicked over the group, his gaze stopping on Hunter's gun.
You kids should know better than to come into these woods without respect,
he growled, gesturing to the dead bear.
That there was a mighty fine specimen. It's a shame to have to put it down because y'all were being careless.
Hunter stepped forward, trying to explain that they had been caught off guard by the bear, but the old man cut him off.
I don't want to hear your excuses, boy,
he said gruffly.
You should know better than to come into these woods without being prepared for anything.
The man then proceeded to describe how he had taken down the bear with a single shot to the head. He explained that he had been tracking the beast for days and that it had been terrorizing the area for some time. The group watched in awe as the hunter expertly skinned and dressed the bear, taking only what he needed and leaving the rest for the forest creatures. After he was finished, the hunter turned to the group, his expression softening slightly.
You kids are lucky to be alive,
he said, looking each of them in the eye.
You need to respect the wilderness and be prepared for anything. This ain't no game, and it ain't no playground.
Hunter and his friends nodded, feeling chastened and a little embarrassed by their recklessness. They thanked the hunter for his help and advice, and the man disappeared back into the woods, leaving the group alone with the remains of the bear and a newfound respect for the dangers of the wild. The group rose early the next morning, packing up their belongings in silence. Samantha's injury dampened their spirits, and the recent events left them feeling uneasy. They piled into their cars and made their way back down the winding roads towards civilization. They made a quick stop at the country store to fill up on gas before hitting the main highway. As they pulled into the gas station, they saw the old hunter man inside the store, deep in conversation with the same old man who had warned them about the dangers of the woods. The man's gaze fell upon them as they entered the store, and Hunter could feel his eyes drilling into him with contempt. The old man finished his conversation with the hunter and turned to face the group.
I reckon that bear would still be alive if you all had listened to someone smarter than yourselves.
He muttered, his tone heavy with disapproval. Hunter and his friends exchanged nervous glances, feeling chastised by the old man's words. They quickly finished their business at the store and left, the memory of the bear and the old man's warning lingering in their minds long after they had left the woods behind. As they drove away, Hunter couldn't shake the feeling that they had narrowly escaped something much more sinister than a wild animal. The memory of the old man's warning echoed in his mind, a haunting reminder that the woods held secrets that were best left undisturbed.